You might have heard that breaking news in the news, before the news as well. According to a Western diplomat cited by the Reuters news agency, there have been credible threats against the US Al Udeid airbase in Qatar since midday. In addition, the Wall Street Journal reporting that Iran has positioned missile launchers for a potential attack on US forces. This broke about half an hour ago. At the beginning of the show, we spoke to Sean Bell, celebrated military analyst, a man who was a former fighter pilot. He talked about what had happened at the weekend, and he talked about what might happen next. We're delighted to drag him back off the sunbed. Sean, thanks for joining us again, my friend. What do you make of this latest breaking news?
Yeah, I mean, it's like all these things when it's breaking, you've got to pick up the scraps from where you find. As you say, there's been reports that 6 missiles have been fired. There's explosions heard over Qatar. Now, it is worth remembering that Al Udeid Air Base is one of the biggest air bases in the region. I have spent some time there myself, well over 100 military aircraft normally based there. And importantly, it's also the Combined Air Operations Centre there, which the US runs on behalf of the coalition. It's relatively isolated location, and if you were to choose a target that is relatively near to Iran, essentially this is one of them. The worry, of course, is that I believe there's something like 11,000 US and international personnel based there. My understanding was that before all of this US operation, a lot of the US assets, aircraft based in the region, were basically flown away just to limit the potential for them to be struck. But of course, there's always a worry for people on the ground. And we say at the moment, we haven't anything confirmed, but that's the worry if this is where it's heading.
We were talking with Freddie Gray earlier about, what happens. It would be, Trump has said, it's one and that's it, you don't respond. It would seem likely to most people that the Iranians are or were likely to respond. If this is true, and I brought you back because, there's a lot of people going, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Difficult times, isn't it, really, for people when they listen to this news and watch it?
There is. I think what's always interesting is trying to see there's a bit of safe face with some of these things, and you have to read the body language, listen to the language and everything. After those strikes, Iran did say, oh, they haven't actually hit anything. So it felt like they were almost trying to dismiss it. I think the key will be here if any US personnel die on the ground. I know it sounds horribly blunt, but that will force President Trump into having to up the ante and stakes. It may well be that, after all, Iran's missile capability has been severely degraded over the last few days, both by firing missiles at Israel, but also Israel's been targeting launchers and their defense industrial base. So it may well be, let's just see how this plays out. It may well be the defenses in place are sufficient. It may well be that this is simply Iraq saying, look, we're fighting back.
Tokenism in a way. It sounds, as you said, a bit harsh when we're talking about bombs and stuff like that, but got to show their people that they're doing something without, apparently, I'm just suggesting it, without going too far, so to stir America into further action. Is that what we're sort of saying around the houses?
Well, it's also worth remembering sometimes with these sorts of things, Jeremy, that it's as much about messaging for your internal population it is for external. They've called this an enunciation of victory. That's what I understand that the Iranians have called this. So for a domestic audience, it may well be that they're saying, look, we're striking at the heart of American military capability in the region. Whether or not it actually has any dramatic effect, in a way you hope that it doesn't end up killing anybody. It allows President Trump just to go, OK, that was the response. I think the really difficult thing is if, of course, it does end up with casualties, particularly significant casualties, because, frankly, President Trump never wants to get involved in a long, drawn-out conflict, but this would tie his hands. He would be obliged to escalate if that was the case.
So just as far as we know at this point, moments ago in Qatar, with the reports of 6 missiles, that's what we've got so far, right, Sean?
6 missiles we understand. We also understand Al Udeid was the target. We've also understand the airspace is being closed down around Qatar, one of the busiest airports in the region. Apparently they're all dispersing elsewhere. There was a credible threat. It was, I think, announced in the Wall Street Journal earlier on today, but we're never quite sure where this information actually comes from. But in individual bits of it, you doubt, but there's quite a collection of it. And of course, if there have been explosions, traditionally that would be air defense missiles going up to meet incoming missiles. And I say, we'll need to get more information, but we were expecting the potential for something from Iran. This would be a pretty significant escalation from Iran's perspective because they're attacking another Arab country. But if it is isolated to the airbase, unfortunately, we have Royal Air Force personnel normally based there, so there are Brits there as well. I don't know if there's any Brit aircraft there. I'd be surprised if there are at the moment. But as I said, this is all breaking news at the moment.
Really appreciate your time. Really, really appreciate it. Just brilliant to have you on. Sean Bell, military analyst, to break that news again.